October, 79 AD. Without warning, the sky above Pompeii seemed to tear apart. A terrifying explosion hurled a gigantic column of fire, smoke, and ash high into the sky, and the ground began to shake. Only a few hours later, deadly waves of burning gas and scorching ash raced down the slopes of the mountain at unimaginable speed. The first city to fall was Herculaneum. In a single moment, it was as if the entire city had been erased from time itself. But the disaster was far from over. Soon afterward, the same fiery storm descended upon Pompeii. Temples, streets, homes, and people running with the last traces of hope. Everything was swallowed by the catastrophe. And so, within only a few moments, the last survivors of Pompeii fell silent forever. And a living city was buried beneath the ash, becoming a part of history. But before this catastrophe, before the mountain unleashed its terrible fury, there was life.
At that time, the Roman Empire stood at the height of its power. It ruled over much of the known world. This was the age of Pax Romana. A time when order, prosperity, and an unshakable belief in the strength of civilization shaped the Roman world. Along the Bay of Naples, in one of the empire's wealthiest regions, two cities embodied that dream. Pompeii, a vibrant city, alive with trade and activity, and Herculaneum, a peaceful coastal retreat of luxury and comfort. Both cities stood in the shadow of what seemed to be a generous and gentle mountain. Vesuvius. Its slopes were covered with fertile land, green fields, and flourishing vineyards. Golden sunlight fell across marble columns, and colorful mosaic floors shimmered, as if the earth itself had been covered in light. In the heart of the city square, life unfolded in all its energy and noise. Merchants called out as they sold cloth, fish, and spices, each voice carrying a different story. Children ran barefoot around the fountains, their laughter mixed with the sound of splashing water, filling the city with life. Above them, women stood on balconies, looking down at the world below, as if time itself had paused to preserve the moment. It was a city that seemed built to last forever, a moment that felt as though it would never end. Every morning, the city awoke to the sound of carts, rolling through the streets, carrying fruit and jars of wine. In the marketplace, shopkeepers shouted prices, and coins clinked against one another, creating a constant rhythm of life, laughter, the sound of fountains, and the voices of mothers calling to their children. Together, they turned the city into a living, breathing world. The ovens burned day and night. Warm bread and fresh focaccia were prepared for everyone, rich and poor alike. The air was filled with the scent of spices, olive oil, and incense from the temples, as if the entire city breathed as one. In the wealthier districts, women walked beneath the shadows of marble columns. Golden jewelry and amber necklaces sparkled in the sunlight. The nobles sat in the gardens of their homes, reading papyrus scrolls, drinking sweet wine, and discussing the politics of Rome as if it belonged to another world.
Details the grain shipments. Fascinating. Let me see the figures. Here, the numbers are precise.
Pompeii was a city far ahead of its time, modern, organized, and prosperous, as though history itself had paused there. Its public baths were masterpieces of engineering. Hot water flowed through hidden pipes, and at the end of the day, people bathed and talked in peace. And above all of this, it stood there, Vesuvius, a quiet, green mountain, covered with vineyards, familiar and serene. It had always been there, and no one ever imagined what it was truly hiding. People did not think of Vesuvius as a volcano. To them, it was simply a mountain. A silent, gentle mountain. Its fertile slopes produced some of the finest grapes. And the wine made from them was famous throughout the region. Its shadow protected the fields from the harsh sun, as if it were not a mountain, but a guardian. No one suspected what lay beneath that calm surface, and no one feared its silence. But the earth had already begun to speak. In the months before the disaster, small earthquakes had started to shake the ground. Walls creaked softly, as though the earth itself were breathing. Wells began to sink, and animals ran in panic. Yet life went on. It was as if the ground was not trembling, but something beneath it was moving. Horses grew restless, dogs barked without reason, and fine cracks began to appear in some houses. The elderly repeated old stories.
The ground shakes.
But people simply smiled. Pompeii was strong. Its civilization was strong. Its faith in the future was strong. And they believed that a civilization could never fall because of an earthquake. Then the day finally came, the day the sky lost its light, and even silence turned into fear. The sky was clear, the sun was shining, and life, as always, was following its daily routine. Meals were being prepared inside homes. Clothes were being washed. Everything seemed normal. In the temples, priests were deep in prayer. Children were playing in the streets. No one knew that their final moments had already begun. It was the afternoon of August 24th. Then, the earth took a breath. A deep tremor shook the ground, as if the heartbeat of the world had suddenly stopped. And then, an explosion tore through the silence. Vesuvius had erupted. Birds scattered into the sky in an instant. Animals pressed themselves against the ground, as if they sensed what was coming. Walls trembled. Pots shattered into pieces. And then, the sky began to change. A giant black column rose into the air. Ash, smoke, and burning rocks climbed higher and higher, as if the earth itself were screaming. The darkness spread across the heavens, and the sun faded into a lifeless circle. The air grew heavy. Every breath became a struggle. Then, fire began to fall from the sky. Volcanic stones rained down upon the city. At first, people thought it was only ash, a misunderstanding, one final hope. But soon, that hope disappeared. Larger rocks began to fall. Roofs cracked and collapsed. Buildings started to break apart. People ran, but the roads were already disappearing, and everywhere, there were only screams. Parents shouted, searching desperately for their children. Every voice was swallowed by the chaos, as if the city itself had stopped listening. Pompeii was no longer a city. It had become a maze with no escape. Horses panicked and broke free, and the harbor, once a gateway to safety, had fallen silent. Even the sea no longer seemed calm. Its waves crashed against the shore, as if it too could feel the disaster unfolding. Pompeii had become a living trap of death. Time had lost all meaning. There was no day, no night, only one endless, heavy moment. With every passing minute, breathing became harder, and hope slowly disappeared into the smoke. Families held tightly to one another, as if fear alone was keeping them together. But there was nowhere left to run. The smoke grew thicker. Every breath became a battle. People called out to their gods, but the sky remained silent, completely silent. The entire city had vanished into darkness. Ash covered everything, as if the world itself had taken its final breath. And in the heart of that darkness, the final chapter of the disaster was about to begin. Its straight streets, its grand houses, and its bright public squares had become tunnels of fear, suffering, and confusion. And still, it was not over. The hours passed. Slowly, every minute began to feel like a century. Families held each other tightly, searching for comfort, safety, and warmth. But warmth was no longer enough. They needed air, and the air was beginning to disappear. The cloud continued to spread, and with it, fear grew stronger. Time itself seemed to slow down. It was as if nature had lost all sense of its own rhythm. The rain of stones did not stop. The clouds of ash grew thicker and darker. People covered their faces with wet cloths. Some even dug holes in the ground, hoping to escape the choking air. Deep inside, everyone held on to a single hope, that somewhere, somehow, there would still be one last breath left to take. The dust smothered the lanterns, and one by one, they went out. The city sank into darkness. Within moments, Pompeii disappeared beneath a vast black cloud. It swallowed not only the light, but the air itself. With every passing moment, breathing became harder. People's eyes began to burn. Ash found its way everywhere, into lungs, into wells, and through the cracks of doors and windows. Despair spread through the city, until many fell to their knees. They believed that the sky had turned against them, and that the wrath of the gods had fallen upon their city. In the poorer districts, houses that were already fragile began to collapse under their own weight. Like broken shells, they folded in on themselves, those sheltering inside, slowly suffocated in the ash and poisoned air. And those who ran outside in search of life, some were struck by stones falling from the sky, while others vanished forever in the burning, suffocating wind. Then, Vesuvius roared once again, a roar so powerful that it shook the earth, the sky, and the hearts of everyone at once. But the truth was, the disaster had not yet reached its peak. Everything that had happened so far, the falling pumice stones, the merciless clouds of ash, the darkness swallowing the city, and the fear inside every heart, had only been the beginning. The true horror was still to come. Deep inside Vesuvius, a force was rising, against which every human effort meant nothing. A force that would leave no path to escape and no time to survive. This was no longer just a volcano. It had become nature's final judgment, a fury that had been building for centuries, searching for a way out for hours. And now, it was about to break free. The afternoon slowly turned into evening, and Vesuvius stood ready to unleash its most terrible blow. Then, from the mouth of the volcano, the mountain released its deadliest weapon, a pyroclastic cloud. Burning gas, ash, and a wave of volcanic debris rushed down the mountain at incredible speed, 300 kilometers per hour, 700 degrees. It was a wave, but not of water. It was a wave of death. There was nowhere to escape. There was no safe direction. You could not run. You could not scream. You could not even breathe. The air itself had turned into fire. Those caught outside did not even have time to understand what was happening. Their bodies stiffened in an instant. The heat was so intense that muscles contracted, bones broke, and flesh turned to vapor. Yet the shape of their bodies and the expressions on their faces remained frozen in place, as if they had been sealed forever. Even inside their homes, the cloud showed no mercy. It entered through windows, it slipped through cracks in the doors, and spread beneath the thresholds like deadly smoke. Animals went mad. They ran in circles and then collapsed. Those hiding indoors begged the gods for mercy. Some, in silence, held their loved ones close. There was nothing left to do. The people who had stayed in the city were caught by it in a single moment. The intense heat burned their bodies, but it could not erase their postures, their gestures, or the expressions on their faces. Pompeii was frozen in that very moment of death, like pictures from an endless moment, as if time itself had carved tragic statues. Death had arrived, but it had not erased life. Instead, it had preserved it forever. A mother was leaning over her son. A man was kneeling in prayer. Two bodies were holding each other tightly. And a dog, chained to a post, had tried to dig into the ground before it was too late. Every one of them saw their story end in that instant. In only a fraction of a second, love, fear, faith, and every expression of pain were sealed forever beneath an invisible blanket. And that cloud did not destroy only Pompeii. Herculaneum, Oplantis, Stabiae, and every town around Vesuvius was caught in its path. But in Pompeii, something different happened. By a strange twist of fate, the entire city was locked away almost perfectly. Everything was swallowed whole. On the surface, nothing remained. The map of the city disappeared. Columns collapsed. Temples fell. The streets were buried. The statues vanished beneath the ash. And the fountains fell silent. Everything that once had a sound, a scent, or a color was gone. In less than 24 hours, Pompeii no longer existed. It had been buried beneath 6 meters of ash and stone. No one came looking for it. No one returned. Its name slowly faded with time. The few people who survived ran away without ever looking back. Many fled to Naples. Others went toward Capua. They told confused stories. They spoke of a day when the sun had died, of a mountain that had swallowed an entire city. But very few people believed them, and no one wanted to go back. The world forgot it. Time erased its name, just as the ash had erased its streets. Pompeii became nothing more than a whisper, a story told to children. A distant memory that no one could prove anymore. And yet, beneath the ash, something remained. Above it, life went on. The fields turned green again. Farmers planted vineyards. The roots of trees grew down among statues, frescoes, and buried bodies. And no one knew where Pompeii once stood. There were now only fields, rich, fertile fields that produced abundant harvests. The rains continued to fall year after year. The sun kept warming the earth. The new people who lived in those lands had no idea what lay buried beneath their feet. Farmers continued to plant vineyards, olive trees, and fruit orchards. They walked above graves, above colorful courtyards, above tables that were still set exactly as they had been centuries before. No one could have imagined that every handful of soil was hiding an entire world. A world that had died in a single day, but even now still lives in the memory of the earth. Centuries passed. The name of Pompeii slowly disappeared into time. Rome fell, new empires rose, and they too vanished. And Pompeii continued to sleep, silent, still, and perfectly preserved, hidden beneath layers of ash several meters thick, as if sealed inside a giant tomb. By the Middle Ages, the name of Pompeii had been almost completely forgotten. A few monks had heard stories about a city that had been punished by the gods, but they did not know where it had once stood. Some searched for it in Palestine, and others believed it was nothing more than a legend. And all that time, beneath layers of volcanic ash several meters thick, everything remained exactly as it had been. Rooms, kitchens, stables, wells, even the writings on the walls. No one touched them. No one could. Pompeii had not simply been destroyed. It had been hidden, lost from sight. Then, one day, almost by accident, someone began to dig. It was the 18th century. Europe was changing. Science was beginning to awaken. Curiosity about the past was growing. Nobles, eager to see the wonders of the ancient world, traveled to Italy. And near the Sarno River, during the construction of irrigation canals, something unusual happened.
Look there, by the old willow tree. I see it. It's just past.
As workers dug into the ground,
Be there soon.
they discovered strange remains, walls covered with frescoes, mosaic floors, Roman coins, and perfectly preserved amphorae. They did not know what they had found. But one thing was clear. These were not ordinary stones, someone informed the authorities. Experts began to arrive. The excavation started slowly, without fully understanding what they were uncovering. But soon, it became clear that an entire city was returning to the light, a city frozen on its final day. And the more they dug, the greater their amazement became. The first walls to emerge still carried perfectly preserved frescoes. Their colors were so vivid as if they had been painted only yesterday. The mosaics were completely intact. They found household objects, fireplaces, lamps, and even beds. Every corner told the story of an ordinary life left unfinished. But it had all been preserved with extraordinary care, as if time itself had wanted to protect every detail. The people who saw Pompeii for the first time stood in silence. It felt as though they had stepped into an ancient dream. Every fresco told a story of love or celebration. The kitchens looked ready to be used again. The beds seemed as though they had just been left behind for the night. It was an archaeological miracle. Nowhere else in the world had the past been preserved with such astonishing detail. From across Europe, scholars, princes, and artists came to see this dead city that still seemed to speak. Then they found the bodies. At first, people believed that they were simply empty spaces in the ash. But when an archaeologist decided to fill those spaces with liquid plaster, an astonishing sight appeared. Those empty spaces revealed the shapes of the people who had died there. Not just remains, not just skeletons, but the full outlines of human bodies, frozen in complete stillness, caught forever in the very moment of death. A mother trying to protect her child. A man covering his face with both hands. A young man lying on his side as if he were asleep. They were all still there. Even now, their fingers were curled, their lips were slightly open, their muscles were tense. Every body told a story. Every pose bore witness to a final moment. They were not simply victims, they were human beings, and Pompeii had preserved them in a way that was heartbreaking, yet deeply moving. Every face told a story. Every body was a fragment of a soul, trapped forever in time. Nowhere else in the world can death be seen in such a human and such a real form. Usually, disasters leave behind only ruins, but Pompeii preserved life itself, frozen in time. It felt as though you were walking inside a silent scream that had lasted for 2,000 years. A scream whose echo can still be heard today. Pompeii still speaks to us today, not with its voice, but through its ruins, through its human casts, through its broken streets, and through the frescoes that were frozen forever in a single moment. Whenever someone walks through the gates of ancient Pompeii, they stop being just a tourist. They become a witness, because Pompeii is a preserved record of unfinished moments, of ordinary lives that were caught forever in their most fragile and most human form. You walk quietly through its streets. Your voice softens without you even noticing. It feels as if you have entered someone else's home, a home that is not yours. And yet, everything is still in its place. A piece of bread left on a table, a comb resting on a bed, footprints pressed into the floor. And when you see all of this, you realize that those men and women were not so different from us. They laughed, they argued, they dreamed, and then, just like dreams, everything disappeared. Pompeii shows us how full of life the world was, only moments before the end, and it reminds us that in just a few hours, everything can be lost forever. The people who visit Pompeii are, in a way, meeting themselves. They see their own reflection in those ancient lives, and they ask themselves, what if tomorrow were my last day? Pompeii pulls us out of the present and reminds us what it truly means to live life fully before it is too late. Because on that day, no one woke up believing it would be their last, and yet, for all of them, it was.